Welcome to another UCL Fantasy video. Today I'm talking about the chip strategy for match day 2, but this will be applicable throughout the entire UCL Fantasy campaign because I'll be talking about some chip strategies you can do in the knockout stages as well, and I'm going to give you my thoughts on the best time to use the Limitless and Wildcard, and also in terms of if you don't know what each of these chips are, I'll explain both of them very briefly and talk about how they could boost and help you in your UCL Fantasy campaign. On screen you can see the UCL Fantasy League, so be sure to join, and throughout most of my videos and live streams on the left hand side you will see it on the bottom left hand corner. There's also a link in the description below and the league code, so there are plenty of ways to join my UCL Fantasy League. We have over 2,000 members already and we're one of the biggest UCL Fantasy Leagues in the world, so thank you very much to those who have joined already, and be sure to check all the other links in the description below for the Patreon channel memberships for early access to my videos and also to be featured on my channel page, get exclusive badges and emojis to use in my videos, and also there's many more links as well, such as my Twitter and Instagram, DylanRCM. But let's get straight into this and we'll talk about the best time to use the Limitless and Wildcard. The Wildcard in UCL Fantasy works as it would in any other fantasy game like FPL, Euro 2020 Fantasy Football, or World Cup Fantasy. You can make permanent changes to your squad and you can make as many moves as you wish, and once the deadline passes, of course, the wildcard is locked in, and if you take hits before activating the wildcard, that's where this chip can wipe out any hits you have taken. So that's one of the beauties of the wildcard, and this is the most powerful chip. I know the Limitless is kind of the most unique and interesting one, and it can give you the highest score in one match day, but the wildcard is a long-term tool, and I know there's only 13 match days overall in UCL Fantasy, only 12 left now after match day 1, but the wildcard can help you not just for one match day, but for at least 2, 3, or possibly more match days. And typically one very popular strategy is to use this chip in match day 3. But I strongly believe there'll be a big shift this season towards using it in match day 2, which is obviously the match day coming up, and I'll be providing best Limitless and Wildcard team videos on the channel. I would encourage you to watch both of them, and then you can decide which chip is best to use in match day 2. If you decide to use a chip, of course, you can go without both and go a little while longer, getting more data before building your Limitless and Wildcard teams later in the competition. You might be looking at this team and thinking, you can't afford it, you're 22.5 million over budget, and that's where the Limitless comes in. Budget restrictions don't apply. You can build a team of anyone you want as long as you have 3 forwards, 5 midfielders, 5 defenders, and 2 goalkeepers, and you want to maximize your squad in the best way possible. Now, because you have no budget restrictions, people tend to just go for the most expensive players, as I have done in this example. That doesn't necessarily mean you're going to get the most points, because you have some cheaper players like Bellingham, who is still around 7.5 million, who are better than most of the midfielders you see on screen. But I think you always have that kind of temptation to go for the expensive players, and I'm not saying don't go for expensive players, but go for that balance. Also look at the fixtures, the form, because they're also very crucial. Don't just go for players based on price. But the Limitless is basically like a free hit from FPL. It only applies for one match day and you have no budget restrictions at all, so you don't have to worry about staying within your 100 million budget. It's completely fine, and also your team will revert back to how it was in the previous match day. So let's say you use the Limitless in match day 2, which is also a very popular strategy, then going into match day 3 you will have your team from match day 1. Now some people may be asking, what if I make a transfer before I activate the Limitless, and then will those transfers still be there for match day 3, the next time that I go without using the chip? The answer is no, you cannot do that. Otherwise that'd be a very nice little cheat code and way to bypass the Limitless and also building your team in the future. So if you make transfers, normal transfers, before activating the Limitless, then using this chip will basically reset it and it won't count anymore. So you will go into match day 3 with the exact same squad you had going into the match day 1 deadline. So be sure you're aware of that. But ultimately, the Limitless is a very powerful tool, but only for one match day, and that's where the wildcard is more of a long-term tool, and I still think that's the more powerful chip of the two. And of course, both of them can really help you in this season's UCL Fantasy. So that now leads to the question, when should we use our Limitless and Wildcards? And if you have followed this channel for a year or maybe several years now, whenever I've covered UCL Fantasy, one very popular strategy that I tend to do is to use the Wildcard in match day 3 and use the Limitless in Matchday 2. But there's going to be a big shift, I think, this season towards swapping it and maybe using the Limitless in Matchday 3 or 4 and using the wildcard now in Matchday 2. So I'm going to explain why this popular strategy is something I've employed most of the time and why I'm still considering it this season, because in Matchday 2, you have the same fixtures as you would in Matchday 5, and of course they're reversed. If you're at home, then in Matchday 5 you'll be away. Very simple. In Matchdays 3 and 4, it's literally the exact same fixtures back to back, and that's where if you use a wildcard in Matchday 3, you'll have the exact same fixtures in Matchday 4, and most likely, if you build your wildcard team correctly, you will still have a very good fixture in Matchday 5, and you have plenty of free transfers to deal with the rotation that tends to happen in Matchday 6. And by the way, Matchday 6, it has the same fixtures as Matchday 1. So let's actually take a look now to the fixtures in Matchday 2 and why most people are going to be using a wildcard instead of using the Limitless chips. So if we look at the biggest teams, the ones you really want to pile up on your UCL Fantasy, so Salzburg, Real Sociedad, you can get a play or two here and there. Same with other fixtures like Union Berlin and Braga. But most likely, most of the people watching and myself won't be going for these assets. You look at Bayern Munich, they're facing Copenhagen. That's a pretty good fixture, actually. Arsenal against Lens, considering Lens' start to the season, they won at the weekend, but overall they've got 1 win, 1 draw and plenty of losses. They're still near the bottom of the league. Arsenal unbeaten in all competitions. That's a good fixture for a big team. Then you look at PSV against Sevilla. I'd give PSV the edge. I think they're the better team there. Napoli against Real Madrid. Now, that's two really good teams facing each other, and it's not ideal. Even Inter Milan versus Benfica, that was a quarter-final of last season's Champions League, and whilst Inter Milan are the favourites this time round, and they'll probably win it, it's still not the easiest game on paper. Then you look at Man United against Galatasaray. I think Galatasaray can be a force at home, but I wouldn't really back them in any away games against Man United or Bayern Munich, but I think that's a good fixture for Man United. Then you look at the Wednesday games. This is the worst case of the lot for Matchdays 2 and 5. Atletico Madrid play Feyenoord. Atletico Madrid are favourites, but Feyenoord could be a stern opposition there. Then you look at Antwerp, Shakhtar Donetsk, not really interested in those assets. Celtic against Lazio, same thing. Then you have the group of death, so any fixture is going to be tough for any single team involved. Borussia Dortmund against AC Milan, that's just not really an easy game to call. Newcastle against Paris Saint-Germain, the same thing, especially considering Newcastle's form. PSG won 4-0 over the weekend, and Newcastle, of course, won 8-0 and also beat Man City 1-0 in the Carabao Cup. Then you've got Leipzig against Man City. Man City are favourites, but last time out they drew. This was in the round of 16, I think, or the quarterfinals last season. It was a 1-1 draw before Man City beat them 7-0 at the Etihad. And the final game is Porto against Barcelona. Barcelona are favourites, but Porto could get a result there at home, and they look very impressive in Matchday 1. So you look at the fixtures, and most of these big teams don't have a great fixture. There's probably 3 or 4 big teams like Man United, Arsenal, Bayern Munich, etc. that have really appealing fixtures on paper in Matchday 2. But I've also got to say it this way. Matchday 2 is probably going to be a low-scoring matchday in terms of the ceiling because a lot of teams have difficult opponents. So if you use the Limitless, you still increase your floor, so the minimum amount of points you can get, because you're buying in better players and you're targeting the better fixtures or even some of these best assets who can do really well regardless of the fixtures. So I know Matchday 2 and 5 don't look the most appealing in terms of the fixture quality, but you can still gain a lot of points from using the Limitless, even if the fixtures aren't to your liking and you're not a big fan of them. So I'd also encourage you to see it from that perspective. I still think a Limitless in Matchday 2 could be very beneficial. If we now have a look at the fixtures in Matchday 3, so we'll scroll down all the way up here, and the fixtures do look better Matchday 3, I will admit that. Bayern Munich have a tougher game this time out, in my opinion, against Galatasaray away, compared to Copenhagen away in Matchday 2, but it's still a good fixture there for the Bavarians. Inter Milan are at home to Salzburg, who actually beat Benfica in Matchday 1. They're not the easiest opponent, but Inter Milan have a more favourable game here compared to Benfica at home in Matchday 2. Then you've got Lens versus PSV. You'd probably back PSV in that match. Napoli against Union Berlin. I know the German outfit were really good last season, but this time out they are struggling, and Napoli would be the favourites in that match, so you can go for Di Lorenzo, Osimhen, maybe Kvaratskhelia as well. Man United are at home to Copenhagen. As bad as Man United have been so far this season, they're getting players back. They just won 3-0 against Crystal Palace in the Carabao Cup, and they also won at the weekend against Burnley. So I think Man United assets would look really good in Matchday 3. Arsenal away to Sevilla. Now, I think think Sevilla away is still tougher than Lens away, but Sevilla aren't in the greatest of form anyway. I know they beat Almeria 4-1 in La Liga, and they are maybe getting back on track, but they're still not the Sevilla that we're used to over the last decade or so, and they can get a result against Arsenal, don't get me wrong. Their atmosphere is absolutely fantastic, probably the best in Spain, but it's not the easiest fixture, neither is it the toughest, in my opinion. Then you look at Real Madrid away to Braga. That's a great fixture there for the Kings of Europe. Then you look at Benfica against Real Sociedad. I think that's quite a tough game, but Benfica would have the edge, and you'd maybe back them from a UCL fantasy perspective. Then you've got Barcelona at home to Shakhtar Donetsk. That's a really good fixture. There's no two ways about it, and it's much more appealing than Porto away in Matchday 2. Feyenoord at home to Lazio. I'd actually favour Feyenoord in this game. You can maybe go for Stengs in the midfield or a few other options like that. Leipzig at home to Svernes Vesada. You would give the German outfit the edge there. Newcastle against Dortmund. Any of these fixtures in the group of death you're not really too interested in, but I think Mbappe against AC Milan is always going to be a good option, and Mbappe is absolutely fixture proof. Atletico Madrid assets away to Celtic. Once again, a cauldron of an atmosphere, but Atletico are the better team. And then Man City away to Young Boys. So the fixtures definitely look better in Matchday 3, but I would argue that using the Limitless still in Matchday 2 and using the wildcard in Matchday 3 is still a really solid strategy, and you can gain as many points as you would by using the wildcard in Matchday 2 and using the Limitless in Matchday 3. Now, there is a debate to use some of these chips later in the competition, and with the wildcard, I typically mention 2 match days to use the chip, either Matchday 3 or Matchday 9, which will be the first leg of the quarterfinals. And if your team is in good shape by then and you've still got the wildcard, you can even save it for Matchday 11. And what that allows you to do by saving the wildcard into the knockout stages is it allows you to go for short-term punts. You can go for a player from a team you expect to be eliminated in the knockout stages, like the round of 16 or the quarterfinals, and you can still go for them and then wildcard them out if they are eliminated. So you can take some bigger risks, go for some bigger differentials, and also just really target the match days in front of you rather than thinking about, okay, let me just pile up on the teams I think will go through. And sometimes your predictions will go wrong, and if you go for 4 or 5 players from a certain team, which you'll be allowed to do in the knockout stages, then the wild card is your get out of jail free card. So there's so many ways of playing these chips, but ultimately with the wild card, I have to admit, using it in Matchday 2 isn't bad at all. But what I don't like about this strategy of using the wildcard in Matchday 2 and the Limitless in Matchday 3 is that it disrupts your rhythm. So use the wildcard in Matchday 2, then you're changing your team completely for Matchday 3, and yet those same fixtures will apply in Matchday 4, the same fixtures on Matchday 3. So why not use either the wildcard in Matchday 3 or save the Limitless in that case for Matchday 5, for example, or even later in the competition. There are examples of people who use it in the round of 16, the second leg, or they use it in Matchday 9 or 10, and they still do very well. But ultimately with the Limitless, I would encourage most people watching to use it in the group stages because you've got the weakest teams still available and you can really target them, like Young Boys for Man City. I think that could be a really good fixture for them, and even Barcelona against Shakhtar Donetsk. There are plenty of examples there. So I think the Limitless is best deployed between match days 2 to 5. You could use it any stage in those match days. It's completely fine, and then you can save the wildcard potentially for Matchday 9. In terms of my current plans, and I'll be honest, it's not completely locked in, but I still think I'm going to go for the Limitless in Matchday 2 and use the wildcard in Matchday 3. It's a strategy that has seen a lot of success for me over the last few years. It has really boosted me even after a solid start in Matchday 1, and whilst it hasn't been the case this time round, I think using those chips can really boost me up the ranks, and I can have something to protect if it all goes according to plan. Now, there are obviously going to be some risks attached by using chips so early, and it's not a guarantee for success, but I have to say every time I've done so, I've done very well, and I'm hoping for the same thing yet again, and that's why building the best wildcard and Limitless teams are so valuable, and I'll be doing it every single match day on this channel before the deadline. So keep an eye out for the best Limitless and wildcard team videos, the team selection, and of course the deadline stream on Tuesday next week. And look, I still think that strategy that people are probably going to gravitate towards of using the wildcard in Matchday 2 and maybe the Limitless in Matchday 3 or 4, that's not bad at all. I'm not saying it's a bad strategy, but in terms of how I want to set my team up and the way I'm looking at the fixtures, I still think it's more beneficial to use the Limitless in Matchday 2 and raise my ceiling or raise my floor, because the fixtures do look tough. I will admit they do look quite tough, but I've got so many fixture swings myself from matchday 1 going into matchday 2, and I'd rather use the wildcard in matchday 3 to have the exact same fixture in matchday 4, and I'll have more transfers to deal with any possible fixture swings in matchday 5 and the rotation in matchday 6. And remember, I haven't mentioned it so far in this video, but you do get unlimited transfers in matchday 7, so you don't need to have a team from now until matchday 13, and that's why you don't necessarily need to use the wildcard in the group stages. That is the chip I'd be more open to using in the knockouts, especially around matchdays 9 or 11. You may be saying, why those match days specifically? Because it's the first leg of either of those rounds, the quarterfinals and the semi-finals, and if you use it in the second leg, then you're not really giving yourself enough room for your assets to show their best possible version, and also they could be eliminated as soon as you basically bring them in, so that's always going to be a big risk. So let me know your thoughts down in the comment section below. When are you looking to use the Limitless and wildcards? I'll be honest, I'm still looking at using the Limitless in matchday 2 and the wildcard in matchday 3, but I'm also open to some other possibilities, especially the wildcard, which could still be used in matchday 9. To summarize, I would be using the Limitless in the group stages no matter what. There are examples, as I said, of people doing well using the Limitless in matchday 8 or 9, but I think typically the highest ceiling is in the group stages when you have the weakest opponents and you have some of the best teams in the world like Man City, Barcelona, having plum fixtures, whether it's at home or away. And in terms of the wild card, I'd be a bit more open-minded. You could use it in matchday 9 or 11 if you still got it in your back pocket by then, but if not, I would typically recommend using it in matchday 3. If you want to use it in matchday 2, I don't think it's a bad idea, but I would just reconsider the other way around, using the wildcard in matchday 2 and then using the Limitless straight away in matchday 3. If anything, you can maybe save that for matchday 4, which remember has the exact same fixtures as matchday 3, but that's probably just the way I would look at it as well. But the wildcard for me has to be used between either matchday 3 or around matchday 9, 11. I think those are the 3 best match days to use the wildcard. And as for the Limitless, any time between matchdays 2 to 5, but my preference is probably with either matchday 2 or 5. Let me know your thoughts down in the comment section below. Of course, it's all about opinions, and I don't have all the answers. I could be wrong about this, but I genuinely believe that the popular chip strategy is still probably the best one on paper. And of course, it'll be interesting if more people have a variance in terms of chip strategies and we all go on a different path. Hopefully we still all do well, but there could be a difference of points, and that's what it's all about. Thank you very much for watching this video. If you enjoyed it or found it useful, then be sure to smash the like button and subscribe if you're new. Let's try to get this video to 300 likes, and let's keep on pushing towards 21,000 subscribers and beyond. You can follow me on Twitter and Instagram, DylanRCM, and check all the links in the description below for the Patreon, Championships Discord server, and the UCL Fantasy League. All of the links are there. There will be a best Limitless and wildcard team video out very soon. It's not going to be anything like what you saw on screen for a lot of this video, so I would definitely encourage you to check out those videos. I'll see you very soon for more UCL Fantasy and FPL content.